Hello and welcome to the National Archives Foundation's virtual program series. I'm Patrick Madden, the Executive Director. Thanks for joining us from home today. We're delighted to give you this yummy presentation about the history of chocolate, its innovations, and how that impacted the taste of chocolate. The National Archives is our nation's memory. And with these programs, we like to open up the doors to the more than 15 billion records housed at the National Archives through these spirited conversations. If you're a regular to our programs, welcome. If not, we're happy to have you. Hopefully by now you've heard of our American Experience emails or our History Snacks emails for kids and families on Fridays. Either way, if you want to learn more about us, you can do that at archivesfoundation.org. And don't forget, we're talking a lot about shopping tonight, but shopping this holiday season, you can find some of the great historic gifts for families and friends at the nationalarchivesstore.org. So we have a lot going on today. We've got a really fun program. We will be using the YouTube chat to engage with you. We've got some polls. We'll be asking you questions. So before we begin, we want to make sure you know how to use the YouTube chat. I see we have a few of our friends already here. Give me your hometown and your state, and I'll give you a shout out later in the program. Also, today, in addition to the polls and the chats and the questions to engage you, we're going to have a giveaway. So today, one of our viewers will win a gift bag from the National Archives store, and it will have a pile of chocolate that I have personally seen from Mars Wrigley. Some of the things that we'll be talking about today. So it's fantastic, and here's what you need to do to be entered into the giveaway. We'll announce it at the end of the program. So you're going to take a picture of yourself, either tasting the chocolate if you purchase the tasting kit, or watching the show, or just having a fun time as part of this. And you're going to use the hashtag chocolate journey. That's on Instagram. Take a picture with chocolate, watching the program, hashtag chocolate journey, and you'll be entered in. At the end of the program, I'll be announcing who our winner is. So before we begin, I got an interesting question from one of our members leading up to this program. What does chocolate have to do with the National Archives? Well, frankly, quite a bit. In 2012, the National Archives mounted a major exhibition called What's Cooking Uncle Sam? It looked at the intersection of food and the government. And our archivists and curatorial staff unearthed an amazing array of documents, images, and film. Of course, featured there was the Public Works Administration. It was key to putting people back to work. Here you see a milk delivery service and a meal preparation team. And over the years, the government produced many stunning posters, whether it be WPA, they were PSAs during World War I and World War II, to communicate its priorities. Of course, food safety developed as a vital role of the government. In the words of the director of our Hoover Presidential Library a few weeks ago when I chatted with them, you didn't want to know what was in the food being sold, how it was being prepared, or how it was stored. The government inspections, obviously, and regulations really made a difference there. Nowadays, the FDA handles many of those responsibilities. And interestingly, the archives, though, has some older records from the FDA you would maybe not be expecting, like this one from Operation Plum Bob in the 50s during nuclear testing in Nevada. The FDA looked at how radiation and other impacts of the test affected commodities. The FDA also has an opinion on chocolate. The National Archives runs the Federal Register, which is a daily posting of the government's activities. And here you can see from 2002 a notice of them telling the public what actually makes up white chocolate. We'll be hearing a little bit more about this from our speaker later today. There are other agencies around the government you may not suspect or have intersections with food, such as the EPA right here, featured in its Documerica photo project from the 1970s looking at American life, or the USPS has its creative ways of being in the food and dessert business. Chocolate, as you know, reaches the very top levels of government. The archives holds thousands of menus from the White House, whether it be state dinners, all the way down to family meals. I can't even imagine how many menus have chocolate. And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the famed White House M&Ms. Since 1988, guests of the President and First Lady on Air Force One and in the White House can enjoy presidential M&Ms. And I think we'll all agree by the end of this program today that M&Ms are out of this world. And of course, NASA agrees. M&Ms have accompanied every astronaut on the space shuttle while it was orbiting, and now it is overhead on the International Space Station. There are M&Ms there. With all these nutrition and food and dessert records of the National Archives, you think that our cafeteria would be one of the best in the government. Unfortunately, sadly, no, but that's a story for another time. So I'm ready to get going with this program. I hope you are too. I'm pleased to introduce our featured speaker. He can fact check my archives history and my chocolate history. Today with us, we have Dave Borghesani, Mars Wrigley. He's not just another guy who knows his way around a candy bar. In fact, Dave is a chocolate historian. He's a chocolate history research manager for Mars Wrigley, graduated from Gettysburg College, majoring in history, and enjoyed a 34-year career with Mars in various sales roles, and has worked very closely with American Heritage Chocolate and their team for the last 5 years, researching and telling the story of chocolate. Dave has spoken to a number of historic sites such as Colonial Williamsburg, Monticello, the Smithsonian Institution's American History Museum, and the National Museum of American Indian, the Betsy Ross House, and a little-known place called the National Archives. Dave was with us in July and October for some virtual programs, which were pretty fantastic. So we got a third in the series here. And you can still view those programs on our YouTube channel. We're going to add to that tonight. So here to explain that intersection of history, chocolate, innovations, and taste, Dave, are you there? How you doing?
I'm here, Patrick, and it's great to be back with you. Thanks for having me again. I always enjoy working with you and the staff at the National Archives Foundation. We have a good time, and we're going to tell folks today a whole bunch of new information about the history of chocolate, hopefully some things you didn't know, and hopefully give you some different things to make you appreciate the fun developments that have happened in chocolate over the years. But before we get started, I want to make sure that all of you have the tools to do a proper chocolate tasting. Now, many of you purchased the chocolate tasting kits, which you will need along with some water to clean your palate before you taste each sample. And please take the time to gather everything before we actually start. Now, don't worry, even if you didn't have a tasting kit and didn't purchase one, we have lots of sweet history to share with you today. So get ready to enjoy a special event where we will be tasting 5 pieces of delicious chocolate and will guide us as we learn history, as we taste history. I will explain the evolution of chocolate making starting over 3,500 years ago, and we will travel through time into the 21st century and modern chocolate making techniques. We will see how machinery that was created during the early 19th century helped propel chocolate making into what we recognize today as chocolate. And I will take you on a journey back at the technology then and see how the manufacturing of chocolate has evolved today. Now, you may be surprised to learn that the basic process for making chocolate hasn't really changed that much over the centuries. And you will see how we make some of your favorite chocolate treats. Remember, making chocolate all starts with one basic ingredient, the cocoa bean. The origins of chocolate date back over 3,500 years ago to the Amazon rainforest. Some of the first people to enjoy chocolate were the early native tribes like the Olmecs, the Maya, the Toltecs, and the Aztecs. While we don't know what made them decide to make chocolate, it's believed that the beans may have been thrown near a fire, causing the beans to roast, producing an enticing, toasted, dark roasted chocolate aroma that prompted them to purposely roast the beans. They ground the roasted cocoa beans into a paste on a heated stone called a metate, adding spices to flavor the chocolate. They would let this chocolate paste solidify and sell it in blocks that were grated into powder and dissolved in warm water, producing a chocolate drink. Did you know that up until the 1850s, people drank chocolate instead of eating it? Now, if anyone has ever eaten a cocoa bean straight from the pod, you know that it's extremely bitter. Processing the beans by fermentation, drying, and roasting only improves the flavor so much. So people experimented with spices that were available to them in the Mesoamerican region, modern day Mexico and Central America. Spices such as red pepper, annatto, vanilla bean would have been added to the chocolate, and people started adding different sweeteners like honey and agave to flavor their chocolate. Now, by the 1500s, chocolate had arrived in Europe, and by the early 1600s, spread throughout all of Europe. In Europe, they added other spices that they liked, such as nutmeg and cinnamon, anise and orange. And a lot of people ask me, when did people start adding sugar to chocolate? Well, sugar was already being used in Europe since the 1200s. It was quickly adopted into chocolate making. When sugar started being farmed in the Caribbean in the 1500s, it made its way quickly to North America. Now, before we start eating our first chocolate sample, I want to explain how to do a proper tasting. So, Patrick, are you ready with me on this? We're gonna talk about.
Let's go for it.
And then what I'm going to do too is after I get Patrick, we teach everybody here what we're going to do. I'm going to see if Patrick remembers kind of a little bit about what we're doing here as well too. Okay, so here's the proper way to do a delicious chocolate sampling. First of all, we recommend, as I mentioned, that you have water. Important that you have water to keep your palate clean in between each taste. First, we want you to smell the chocolate. We want you to lightly rub the chocolate to release the different aromas in the chocolate. Now, if you were like me, for years, I couldn't just wait to get the wrapper off the chocolate before I put the chocolate in my mouth. But if you do that, you are missing a fantastic experience. Now, after you've rubbed your chocolate, hold it up to your nose and inhale it a couple times. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take a small bite out of your chocolate and allow the chocolate to dissolve on your tongue for about 30 seconds or more. It should cover your tongue so that all the flavors are picked up by your taste buds. You want to notice also the texture of the chocolate when you bite into it. And lastly, of course, you're going to want to swallow the chocolate to enjoy the finish of the different flavors of the chocolate. You should be able to identify different flavors and different textures today to the different chocolates that you're going to sample. So see if you can detect different flavors, things like milk, spices, fruit, nutty flavors, roasted and toasted flavors, and you should have 5 uniquely different tasting experiences. And again, always remember to clean your palate with water after each piece. Now, the first brand you're going to sample is American Heritage Chocolate. So just to let you know, we're also going to have a poll to see what flavors you are tasting. So please pay attention to the different flavor experiences that you're going to have. And just to let you know too, American Heritage Chocolate, so please take your sample out, is actually chocolate that's based upon authentic recipes from the 1750s. So you're tasting something that was really consumed back in the early 18th century, and we hope you'll enjoy the experience. Now, let's see if you were paying attention, Patrick, to this, and Patrick and I will demonstrate the steps. So again, if you would like to, please follow along as we begin to sample our chocolate. Remember, first of all, take a sip of water. Thank you, Patrick. Lightly rub your chocolate, Patrick. And everybody at home, follow along, not too much. Now remember, this activates your senses of smell. In a tasting, you want to have all of your senses going. Now, take a bite and let it melt in your mouth. Take your time and actually let the chocolate melt because your taste buds are all over your tongue. So we're going to give it a few seconds just so we don't feel like you're being rushed. But again, let that chocolate coat your tongue. You should be getting a bunch of different tastes. And again, we're going to have a poll for you to try to see if you can remember what you tasted, especially when you first bit into that chocolate. Now,
That's
when you're
right.
done, make sure you swallow and enjoy all the flavors. So go ahead, Patrick. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I've already swallowed, so I knew the last step. So let's launch this first poll. We want to hear from folks. We got a lot of folks watching today, which is great. So there are 3 ways that you can participate in the poll. We've dropped a link in the chat, the YouTube chat, so you can click on that, or you can open up your browser and go to pollev.com/AHC2020. Or if you want to use your phone, you can text in sort of a 2-step process. If you're going to text, you're going to text AHC 2020 to 22333. AHC 2020, text that to 22333. You'll probably get an auto response. And after you get that auto response, then you're going to put in what you're voting for. So if we show the options here, we have 4 different flavors we're taking a poll on. So after you text HC 2020 and you get the auto response, then just put in B, C, A, whatever you want to put in your text, and your votes will come in. So we are starting to get the votes in.
Excellent. Let's see some more votes, everybody. Please take the time to do this. It's exciting to see what it is that you're experiencing when you're eating your chocolate. And you're going to get a chance to, again, try these different chocolates. But we're starting off with one that should give you a lot of different taste that you just enjoyed. But again, I want everybody to remember, there's no right or wrong way to enjoy your chocolate. And just because somebody else picked up one flavor and you picked up another flavor or two, doesn't mean that they did it right and you did it wrong, or vice versa. It's just the way your taste buds are perceiving the flavors. So again, what did you taste? What was one of the flavors that stood out most to you? And then again, just think back. Now, you may say, well, I got 2 or 3 of those, Dave. That's fine, but just pick the one that you thought was most prominent.
I think we're starting to get a clear leader here, Dave.
I think so too. I don't know if I'm ever surprised by what I see, Patrick, but there's some interesting numbers coming in.
So I didn't obviously get the vote, but I would have gone nutty as my first option. So my
now,
taste
Patrick,
buds
if those nutty numbers start going up just because you said it, there it goes. Because
that's right, influencing the vote. What?
Yeah. So who's the winner, Patrick?
Let's see. So we got spicy with the tall lead there, 53%. Citrus at 19%. Sweet is going up and down, almost sort of a tie between sweet and nutty there, and we'll call it a tie for third.
Okay, very good. Okay. So again, you may be unfamiliar with American heritage chocolate, so let me tell you a little bit about it. It is chocolate, as I mentioned, based upon recipes from the 1750s. It's a semi-sweet chocolate flavored with different spices. And you will notice that there are a variety of flavors that are produced by adding the spices to the chocolate. There are 6 spices that are in that chocolate. There's cinnamon, anise, nutmeg, orange, red pepper, and vanilla. There's also some salt and some sugar. And you probably will not taste all of them. And as I mentioned, different people will pick up different spices. You know, some people have actually told me too that they taste flavors like banana or cherries, but neither of them are an American heritage chocolate. It's just the result of the way your taste buds process the flavors. I mentioned this is a semi-sweet chocolate versus a milk chocolate, which has obviously milk or dairy products in it, or a baking chocolate, which contains no sugar. So if you're wondering what semi-sweet means, it is chocolate made with cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and sugar. You know, Patrick, I have the pleasure of traveling the country and doing a lot of tastings and demonstrations on chocolate. And one of the questions that I often get is, why did we go from drinking chocolate to eating chocolate? And the answer to that question is because innovation was a natural part of the human condition. It was new, it was innovation. People had certainly eaten solid pieces of chocolate, but it was not enjoyable and kind of hard, like this. This is something you might have broken a tooth on. Now, in the early 1800s, the Industrial Revolution was happening globally, and chocolate was not exempt from the impact of the innovations that came from the Industrial Revolution. Chocolate makers began making machines like the cocoa press that allowed them to change the density of chocolate so that it could be eaten just like we enjoy our chocolate today. Why didn't we want to eat chocolate instead of drinking it? Well, chocolate was growing in popularity, and chocolate makers wanted to find ways for people to enjoy it more frequently. Even then, they were looking for ways to get people to enjoy more chocolate. Now, remember earlier I said that chocolate was made into a solid block that had to be grated and dissolved in warm water. If you tried to eat the solid block of chocolate, you probably couldn't bite into it like you would in today's Snickers bar. In order to make it easy to eat, it had to get softened. So in comes the cocoa press. Removing some of the extra cocoa butter allowed for a softer, more edible block of chocolate that didn't have to be grated and could be eaten. And that is what Dutch chocolate maker Conrad van Houten did in 1828. He invented a machine called the cocoa press that applied pressure, literally squeezing out the cocoa butter from the beans. What did it accomplish? It squeezed out the cocoa butter from the beans, leaving a solid cake of cocoa powder. And before this machine was invented, a chocolate maker would have had to use a manual press, which was very time-consuming and took a great deal of effort. Now, large batches of beans could be processed quickly and efficiently, leading to large-scale chocolate production. So, what difference did this make for chocolate makers? It made it possible to create a solid chocolate that was soft enough to eat, but it still wasn't the same type of chocolate like we have today in a Three Musketeers bar. But did you know that chocolate was one of the only foods to change from a beverage to a solid form? So, when was the first chocolate bar produced? In 1847, English chocolate maker Joseph Fry and Sons blended cocoa solids, cocoa butter, and sugar to make the first solid chocolate bar that was mass-produced in England. It was literally called Chocolate Delicious to Eat. It seemed that people enjoyed eating chocolate, and the company began making other solid chocolate items. However, the chocolate that they created had what we would perceive as a gritty texture. Now, while Fry was making solid chocolate in England, the Swiss were developing something revolutionary. Chocolate makers had tried to add milk to chocolate with no success, and in 1867, Swiss chocolate maker Henri Nestle developed the process for condensing milk. Another Swiss chocolate maker and friend of Nestle's, Daniel Peter, successfully added the condensed milk with his dark chocolate, and in 1876, he created the first milk chocolate bar. Now, are we ready for our next sample? Patrick, what do you think?
I'm ready. Yeah, let's jump in.
Good. So the next brand that you'll be sampling, so take it from your kit, is your Dove Milk Chocolate Promise. So go ahead and take that out. Remember, clean our palate. And we're going to take our chocolate and we're going to gently rub it to release some of those different aromas from the chocolate. We're going to do a couple of different good inhales. Now you should immediately notice something different about this chocolate versus the American Heritage chocolate when you do that. Now, this is Patrick's favorite part, by the way. Take a bite and let it melt over your tongue. Give it time to spread all across your tongue and just enjoy the taste of that delicious Dove Milk Chocolate Promise. You know, as you bite into the sample, you might have noticed a little snap. And I'm going to explain how chocolate gets its snap in just a few minutes. So please stay tuned for that. You'll notice that adding milk makes a nice sweet and creamy flavor to the chocolate. So tell us in the chat what other flavors you're taking. We want to hear from you.
So this is your chance to chime in. Those of you who are tasting the chocolate at home might have it just in your cupboard, so you're helping yourself. That's good too. Let us know what you're tasting here with the Dove milk chocolate.
Us along a little bit too. So think about different things that you can associate with the chocolate. So is anybody tasting some vanilla flavors? How about some caramel flavors? And maybe you're tasting some different roasted flavors. Share those different things that you're tasting in the chat.
We're definitely getting vanilla, milk, sugar, a little nutty, creamy, smooth, buttery. I think they're hitting the mark there. I want to remind folks while you're doing this, these tastings, don't forget to get your phone out, take a picture, and post it on Instagram. Hashtag chocolate journey, so you can be entered in to our giveaway at the end of the program. Now's a good time while you're wiping the chocolate off your lips there. So I think everyone is on point. I've got somebody who said marshmallow. Are you sneaking marshmallow into the Doves?
No. You've got a lot of vanilla flavor. Yep. Good. Remember, it's your experience. It's your personal experience. So whatever you're perceiving is exactly, what you're getting out of it. So that's fantastic. Well, if anybody,
I do have a question, Dave. Before you go on, there's some questions in the chat about how is American heritage tied to Mars. You might want to just explain that because it's not as well commercially known as some of the other brands.
Great question. So again, American Heritage Chocolate was founded in 2003 by the late Forrest E. Mars Jr. He had a vision for telling the story of the history of chocolate to everybody and wanted to do it via development of an authentic piece of American chocolate, which is how we developed, through careful research, the recipe for American Heritage Chocolate. Now, if you're not familiar with American Heritage Chocolate, it's available at over 50 historic sites and museums across the country. It's available online from places like Amazon. And it gives you a chance to really explore history while you're enjoying the delicious taste of an authentic early American chocolate recipe.
Terrific. Well, I don't want to waylay you. We've got more things to taste and more things to tell us.
Great. So if anybody noticed that the texture is different than American Heritage Chocolate, it's because of the milk in the product, which actually does make it creamier. And we heard some people say that. All chocolate starts off as dark chocolate. It becomes milk chocolate when you add a higher percentage of milk into the chocolate. So you just enjoyed a silky, smooth piece of delicious Dove milk chocolate. If you were eating milk chocolate in the 1870s, the milk would have made chocolate smoother, but it still would have been gritty. Enter the conching process. Swiss chocolate maker Rudolf Lindt developed a process in 1878 called conching. Conching got its name because the original design for the inside of the machine resembled a conch shell. By moving the chocolate back and forth in the conch, two things happened. First, the motion created by the stone roller aerated the chocolate, which enhanced the flavor. And second, the agitation changed the consistency of the chocolate from a thick paste to a smooth liquid that could be poured into molds. Now, Lindt's original conch only produced a few gallons of chocolate at a time, compared with a modern conch that can now produce several tons of chocolate in just a matter of hours. Now, let me ask our audience. First of all, have you ever eaten a piece of chocolate that didn't look good? Maybe it had a dull finish or it was discolored. For most chocolate today, that's not the case. Although Lindt was successful in creating smooth texture with the invention of the conch, it didn't really look that delicious. One of the issues that plagued chocolate makers back then, and even sometimes today too, is something called bloom. Bloom is when white spots appear on the surface of chocolate. Now, those white spots are just cocoa butter that has risen to the surface. And today, that usually happens when you leave some chocolate in the sunlight or in your car. On a warm day, it melts and then it cools again. That's called bloom. Now, bloom doesn't drastically change the flavor of the chocolate. It just doesn't look so good. But back then in the 1890s, all chocolate bloomed because there was nothing to prevent it. Enter Swiss chocolate maker Jean Tobler. He solved that problem by developing a process called tempering. Tempering raises and lowers the temperature of the chocolate, creating a beautiful shine on the chocolate. Now, remember when I mentioned the snap when you bite into it? Well, that is the result of tempering. Now, around 1900, innovation in candy making drove chocolate makers to look for new candies. One example is the process of enrobing chocolates. For years, if you wanted to eat a chocolate-covered nut or a piece of fruit, it had to be hand-dipped into chocolate. Now, that's easy for small artisanal chocolate businesses, but it didn't lend to mass producing. The enrobing machine was invented in France in 1903. Imagine, whatever you're trying to cover in chocolate can be moved on a conveyor belt and is covered on top and on bottom with a curtain of chocolate. This revolutionized chocolate bars and made way for mass production of chocolate-covered filled treats. Around the same time as enrobing was being launched, a new chocolate company was emerging. In 1911, Frank and Ethel Mars began making buttercream candy in the kitchen of their Tacoma, Washington home. A few years later, they moved to Minneapolis and opened a small candy factory called Nougat House. Changing the name in 1922 to Morrow Bar, the company began producing its first chocolate candy. The first success came in 1923 when the Milky Way bar was introduced. The bar consists of malted nougat, caramel, and is enrobed in milk chocolate. Now we're ready for our third sample. But before we eat our third sample, let's make sure we cleanse our palate. And take out your Milky Way bar. Do the same thing with your Milky Way bar that you did with your American Heritage chocolate, and that you also did with your Dove milk chocolate. And again, just gently rub the chocolate, top or bottom, doesn't matter. You notice the nice pattern you see on top of your chocolate? That's, again, caused by enrobing. Now, gently smell the delicious aroma of the chocolate. Much like you've been doing with each one of the samples, you should notice something uniquely different about the aroma of a Milky Way bar versus Dove milk or American Heritage chocolate. Now, after you've done that, I'm going to ask you to take a bite of your American Heritage chocolate. Do the same thing. Let it gently dissolve on your tongue and get all of those different flavors to cover your tongue. Well, please tell us in the chat also what you're tasting. You could probably do both things at one time. Enjoy the chocolate as well as give us your feedback in the chat. What are you tasting? What are you noticing? What's different about this chocolate versus what you enjoyed before with the Dove milk and the American Heritage chocolate? Is anybody noticing a very smooth texture when you're biting into the chocolate? Anybody noticing the change in the texture from the bite, which is very smooth, versus when you experience it, it's very smooth when you bite in, then you experience the kind of chewy texture of the caramel and the nougat. The flavor notes are different than you experienced with Dove milk. You may pick up some prominent milky flavors, some buttery flavors, as well as some caramel and some sweet notes as well too. Now, enrobing further allowed chocolate makers to create different textures depending on what was in the center. So, Patrick, if you're there, can you maybe share what you're hearing or reading in the chat room? I'm excited to hear what some of the folks are discovering when they're eating a Milky Way bar.
Absolutely. We've got a whole bunch of comments and remarks. And I also we didn't earlier tell you where everyone's from. So I wanted to sort of highlight, we've got folks from New Jersey, Texas, Boulder, Raleigh, North Carolina, New York City, Utah, Boynton Beach, Florida, Long Island, Michigan, let's see, Scranton, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Las Vegas, Ohio, Kansas, Frisco, Texas, Bemidji, Minnesota, the Czech Republic, Illinois, California, let's see, Alabama, Arkansas. If I missed any other states here, Vermont, Washington. We've got the landscape covered, so that's exciting. Welcome to all of you. And Dave, they're tasting everything: the caramel, the butter. They are definitely chocolate. Let's see, vanilla and sugar, and then several comments that unfortunately their Milky Way bars didn't make it to this point in the tasting. And in some instances, the kids ate both their own and their parents' tasting kit there. So not surprising. What I wanted to share was, Dave, so the Milky Way is my sort of what I taste when I bite into it is my childhood. So in the summer when we would go to the pool snack bar they sold frozen Milky Way bars. And so whenever I bite into a Milky Way bar, it takes me back to the pool in the warm summers here in the DC area. And always delicious, good memories and terrific chocolate. So, and I know everyone's got a chocolate story. So wanted to share mine.
I think that's true. Thank you, Patrick, because you all have chocolate stories. And I'll tell you my Milky Way chocolate story, and I'm sorry, I actually have two of these. I would love to be able to share with the person at home who didn't have one. But when I first started with Mars Wrigley, and as Patrick mentioned, it was 34 years ago, this was actually the first Mars Wrigley product that I actually ate. It was a Milky Way bar, and I've loved them ever since. It is fantastic. So, Patrick, any other last comments, or should we move ahead?
Well, just some people agreeing that frozen Milky Ways are great. So I'm in kindred spirits. Go, take it away.
Excellent. The Milky Way bar was the first bar created by Frank and Ethel Mars in 1923. Manufactured in their Minneapolis, Minnesota facility, the Milky Way bar became the first mass-produced filled chocolate bar. Although many believe it is named after the astrological galaxy, it was named for a then popular dessert, the Milky Way malted milkshake. Following the Milky Way bar, the Snickers bar, named for one of the family's favorite horses, was launched in 1930, followed in 1932 by the Three Musketeers bar and the Mars bar. Now, for those of you, and there may be some of you out watching, who are Mars almond bar lovers and thought maybe Mars discontinued it. In 2002, the original Mars almond bar was renamed Snickers almond bar. It is available at your grocery store or many other retailers online. Now, during the mid-1930s, the Nestle company developed a new flavor of chocolate, white chocolate. Now, while there is no definitive reason for the development of white chocolate, one theory is that it was a way to use up excess milk powder and cocoa butter that had been produced for World War I. If you remember, we talked about how the cocoa press pressed out the cocoa butter and then was blended back into the cocoa solids to make chocolate. In white chocolate, the pressed out cocoa butter is mixed with sugar and vanilla without adding in any cocoa powder, otherwise known as cocoa solids. There you get a shot of both dark white and milk chocolate. So now let's get ready to taste some white chocolate. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and grab your Ethel M white chocolate coin from your kit Remember to rinse your palate first before you enjoy your chocolate. And Patrick, while people are enjoying their chocolate, I think you've got another poll.
That's right. So we are going to see as we go through this tasting process, true, false. Do you believe white chocolate is real chocolate? And again, there's three ways to participate in the poll. We've got the link is going to hit the chat. You can go to pollev.com/AHC2020, or you can text to 22333 your answer. And in this case, you're going to be texting A or B. So if you've already texted your previous answer, you can text A or B to see how the poll is going here. We have a clear leader, but it's adjusting here. I'm going to take a bite of my white chocolate while we're waiting. And then I did have a question from the chat for you, Dave. Folks wanted to know if the milk in milk chocolate is condensed milk.
In today's world, well, we actually use mostly powdered milk when we're making our chocolate in today's world, just because it's easier to transport, doesn't run the risk of spoilage. So again, there are different ways to make it. You can use condensed milk as well too, but yes, just to use milk, and you can try it at home. If you ever want to make chocolate, you could try it at home too. The problem with it is it's very hard to get the chocolate to set up if you just used regular milk. It's got too much water in the chocolate to remove some of that. Great question, though.
Well, let's pull up our poll here and see how I think we've got a clear winner. And I've been watching the chat. So it clearly, large majority of our folks think that white chocolate is not real chocolate. And one person put a fine point on it. They called it white chocolate a travesty. So I'll let you manage that.
Well, I hope your Ethel M. white chocolate coin might have changed your opinion about that too. It's a very delicious piece of white chocolate. And also white chocolate is often used in baking as well too. So you may see it there and you may like it there more than just eating a piece of the chocolate. You know, when you take a bite of white chocolate, you may notice some similarities with the texture of the Ethel M. white chocolate and the Dove chocolate. You may experience a sweeter flavor with the prominent vanilla flavors in the white chocolate that kind of might remind you of vanilla pudding. Now, for those hardcore chocolate lovers, and I think we saw some of those in the poll, the term white chocolate is just not accepted. Many people do not accept the idea of chocolate that is white because they believe that removing the cocoa solids or cocoa powder, the stuff that makes chocolate brown, means it can't be called chocolate. For many years, white chocolate was classified as confectionery, but not as a chocolate. If you remember in Patrick's opening, he showed an image of the standards of identity for white chocolate. In the US, this issue of the classification of white chocolate went to the Food and Drug Administration, and in 2002, it published a final rule that established those standards of identity for white chocolate. Based on the ruling, in order to be marketed as white chocolate, a product must contain at least 20% cocoa butter, 14% milk solids, and 3.5% milk fat. Now it is time for our final sample. You know, what a journey we've already taken, but there's so much more in the innovation of making candy. Now, the process that is used in creating M&M's chocolate candies is a process called panning. Picture, if you will, a small portable cement mixer. That's kind of what a pan looks like. It's a round pan on an axle that turns, allowing centers to be coated with colored sugar. The constant rotation forms a smooth surface while evenly coating the individual pieces of chocolate. The final step in creating the product is to apply a sugar coat, forming a protective layer on the candy. You know, centers like peanuts can also be panned by spraying a fine coat of chocolate on the centers. The same principle of candy tumbling in the pans produces an even coating on the chocolate center. Now, Patrick, you know, the last time we spoke, we discussed how chocolate has been enjoyed by American soldiers in every war in which America has fought, going back to the French and Indian War in 1754. the way that soldiers enjoyed chocolate changed as manufacturing advanced, and soldiers went from drinking chocolate to eating chocolate. As chocolate became more portable, it became more of a treat for soldiers versus a source of sustenance. Innovation resulted in chocolate that could withstand higher temperatures. And during the Spanish Civil War, Forrest E. Mars Sr., the son of Mars Incorporated founder Frank C. Mars, observed soldiers eating small pieces of chocolate coated with a hard sugar shell. He brought the idea home with the intent of creating a similar confection. He partnered with Bruce Murray, son of Hershey president William Murray, and developed what is known today as M&M's chocolate candies. M&M's milk chocolate candies made their debut in 1940 and were packaged in a cardboard tube and packed in soldiers' food rations. The original colors were brown, red, orange, yellow, green, and violet. At the end of the war in 1945, service personnel wanted to continue enjoying milk chocolate candies. M&M's milk chocolate candies. So Mars immediately began making M&M's milk chocolate candies for people everywhere in the US. Now, Patrick, before we go into our last sample, I want to propose another chat. For those M&M peanut chocolate candy lovers, do you know when they first launched in the market? Go ahead and place your guess in the chat. We'll give you some time to go ahead and do that.
So peanut chocolate candy lovers, the M&M peanut chocolate. What year did they hit the market? We'll let the queue go here for a little bit. Drop that into the chat. There has been a lot of chat activity while you're chatting as well, Dave. You should know that.
Excellent.
There are a lot of opinions, a lot of opinions on chocolate, and they are all mostly positive. 1962, 1952, 58. No Googling. We should have said no Googling up front. 60, 60, 64, 70. I think my Wi-Fi just caught up with everybody's answers because I'm getting about every date between 1950 and 1970. So I'll let you get spoiler. You've got the answer for us.
Well, I do, but I want to let everybody know too. I mean, I enjoy M&M's peanut chocolate candies too. So I get the big jumbo bag like this, Patrick, and I know you're a big fan of M&M's. So this might be a size that you would like as well too. So
that's the one that goes in my stocking.
Excellent, good. So they actually first appeared in 1954. So the next brand you're actually going to be sampling is M&M's milk chocolate candies. So go ahead, if you would, and take out your M&M's milk chocolate candies and get ready to taste some hand candies. Now, you all know what to do in prepping for this, so I don't think I need to tell you. So let's start by just the drink, and I'll let you take it all from there, people, as you sample your chocolate. Now, I must confess, Patrick had asked me one time, too, if we should just eat like one at a time. And I think that's not necessarily the case. You might want to throw a whole lot more in your mouth as that, too. You know, what I'd like you to do at home, too, is if you're enjoying your M&M's milk chocolate candies, I want you to contrast the crunch of the sugar shell followed by the smooth texture of the chocolate inside. It's a little bit different than what you've experienced before. So while you're enjoying M&M's milk chocolate candies, you might notice a texture is crunchier than Dove chocolate, and that's because the crunch is caused by the sugar shell and the size of each candy. So, Patrick, we've got another chat for us here. Does anybody have a favorite M&M's chocolate candy story from your childhood or maybe your adulthood? Maybe you have a favorite color that you always go to. Maybe you have your favorite M&M's character or a first memory of M&M's chocolate candies. So if you would at home, please feel free to share that with us. I confess,
we're
Patrick,
seeing them come in now.
before too.
I think some people find it impossible to eat just one at a time. So I think we can knock that mystery out. But yeah, share your favorite story. Maybe I was on camera when I was shoveling those in my mouth. I apologize. Share your favorite story about M&Ms in the chat. We'll give you a little shout out. This is we're almost getting to the end, so if you'd like to add your picture to Instagram, #ChocolateJourney, please do that so we can get you into the mix for potentially to be the giveaway winner. And Dave, as these are coming together, we've got some favorite colors coming through, I'm sure. But Dave, you've got to have an M&M story for us.
I do. So let me share mine too, because again, I've been eating M&Ms for a long time. But one of the things that I always do with my M&Ms, and maybe it's just an indication of my personality type, is I separate all the colors, and then I eat each color independently of the other. And one of the unusual things that you may not have known about me, if you care, is that I always save the colors of my college last. They would be orange and blue.
That's those are the Gettysburg colors?
Yes, they are.
All right. Well, we got some fun stories. A lot of folks sharing their favorite colors. We've got folks who their fun memories from the M&M store, potty training, which this is not the first time I've heard incentivizing children with M&Ms. One person takes them on their long bike rides. It's a good little motivator for you. How about this? Playing tic-tac-toe with M&Ms. Folks want us to vote on favorite color. I think that could be a little dangerous.
Butts for
we've got a teacher who uses in math class to teach probability. There you go. M&Ms are educational. So many different uses. So I think we are getting to.
I'm going to bet that there's some fantastic stories on there, and I would just love to know what people are doing. So sorry we can't hear them all, but thank you all for sharing them.
That's terrific. Yeah, we'll be able to go back and read those. As we come to the end here, we do have one final poll. And for those of you who were tasting along, we want to know which favorite chocolate was your favorite sample today. I will go through them in a second. Again, there's 3 ways to participate. There's the link in the chat. You can go to pollev.com/AHC2020, or if you've been voting via text, you're going to text to 22333. And your options are favorite tasting sample for today: American Heritage chocolate, Dove milk chocolate, Milky Way chocolate, FLM white chocolate, and of course M&M's milk chocolate candies. So if you're texting, you're going to text A, B, C, D, or E. And while we are doing that, I think we're going to be wrapping up our giveaway, so we'll be able to announce that in a minute or two. So, Dave, I have to ask you though. Whenever we see you, I don't get to see you very often at the holidays, but do you have a chocolate wreath that has been hung with care? Hopefully, not above the fireplace.
No, but I think it's a great idea. My wife is very creative and very artistically gifted. It may be just an idea for her to consider actually putting together. I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm afraid, though, Patrick, that the candy might not last very long on the wreath.
That's true. You're going to have to hang that pretty high for me. But if I see that Mars starts producing chocolate wreaths next year, I might have to come chat about a commission on that idea. Yeah, we've got, let's see, the poll is going here. See if there's any other quick questions that you might answer along the way. I do have a question about what is nougat made of? Maybe that's a quick one you can answer while we're getting the poll in.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's actually, we aerate the chocolate, right? So we were going to push to the chocolate to fluff it up like that too. And again, one of the really important things when you watch them do this is not just to infuse the air into the chocolate, but to make sure that it holds its shape. And again, if you see, a Milky Way bar or Three Musketeer or Snickers bar, you have an expectation that nougat's going to be about the same in every bar. And I think you will find that it's really quite remarkable. And I'd love to be able to even talk more about things. Can't tell everything. We're almost out of time. But it's actually fun to see the process. We saw a little bit about the enrobing process, which you would have done with the nougat bar, and also how they apply the caramel, and if it's a Snickers bar, how they apply the peanuts.
Terrific. Well, let's see the poll numbers up there. How about that? We've got
Wow.
American Heritage in the lead. Although Dove is not that far off. Milky Way, FLM. So I will say that the I think if you had maybe offered a different chocolate from FLM, that might have been a different number. The white chocolate might be skewing that because I do love the FLM chocolate brand. And then M&M's holding in solid there. Hopefully, this has been a surprise for some folks who might not have tried American Heritage chocolate before. They were surprised and obviously educated along the way with you, Dave, with all of the details on how Mars came up with it and the history behind it, which has been great. Before we wrap up, I do want to congratulate Jan McClintock, who is our winner on the Instagram giveaway. So we will be in touch to get you a gift bag of Mars Wrigley. A lot of the tasting samples from today. I think there's some recipes in there, as well as some gifts from the National Archives store. So Jan, congratulations to you on that. Dave, this has been a fantastic program. We've really just had a blast. It's tough for me to say no to a chocolate program, and I am looking at my desk here, just below the camera, and there's just a couple of M&Ms left. So that's my incentive to wrap this thing up so I can finish off my M&Ms. But the rest of the samples are long gone, as they should be. Any last parting words?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who joined in tonight. We thank you so much for your interest in this fascinating subject. I love it. I made a career out of it, but there's plenty of different ways that you can learn about the history of chocolate. And I really would encourage you to investigate different things. If you like American Heritage chocolate, our poll showed that it's one of the very few chocolates that you can eat it, you can bake with it, and you can drink it. It's perfect for the holidays. And also, try to think of different creative ways that you can surprise and delight your guests with your chocolate favorites in your recipes, or certainly during the holiday times, just to give people the sheer joy that you just experienced of chocolate. And thank you, Patrick, and all of the wonderful people at the National Archives Foundation. We love working together with you.
Of course. Thanks, Dave. Another professorial evening for me, and always, I think, interesting. I always learn new things. I'm really starting to get the hang of this the chocolate process. It's taken me 3 or 4 times, but I appreciate all of the good spirit that you bring to it, and the team at Mars Wrigley, and of course American Heritage Chocolate, our partners at the National Archives Foundation as well. We just have a couple of announcements before we wrap things up. We appreciate all of our donors who have joined us today, our members. If you aren't a donor or a member, by all means, you can join and learn more about the foundation at archivesfoundation.org. And it's not too late for the holidays to consider to add us to your shopping list for the best gifts in DC, historic in nature. Connect your gifts to American history, and nationalarchivestore.org. This is also where you're able to get the American Heritage Chocolate tasting squares, and we've got some powdered goods as well. If you're interested in the FLM milk chocolate, we do not have that. You can go to flm.com for that as well. So I hope that you will visit us and consider buying some American Heritage chocolate, but also wander around our virtual store. I think you'll find some terrific gifts for family and friends. We've got one more program left this month. Later, actually, it's next week at 5 o'clock. We'll be interviewing Rebecca Roberts, the curator of programming, for a virtual tour of a brand new cultural site in Washington, D.C. called Planet Word Museum. The latest museum to be added to the Washington, D.C. scene, and they're one of our neighbors just a few blocks away from the National Archives. You can keep up with these programs and all of our other activities by following the Foundation on social media. Remember, what is past is prologue, and on behalf of the National Archives Foundation, thank you for joining us tonight.